Welcome to Cryptic Accounts, a podcast by paranoid people for paranoid people. And this week on the show, we've got elf waves, mind control, and mass shooters. I'm your skeptic researcher this week, Patrick Ryan, joined as always by my discoverer of all things weird, Dennis Cheney. Hi, Dennis.
Hello, Patrick. It's going to be a great week. I can feel it.
I love that. So the title didn't upset you that time?
Does this have anything to do with the show I did on brain melting waves?
It wasn't intentional. I think you're gonna find some connections to some of the things from the Havana syndrome. Wasn't that what it's called?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, then
yes,
I'm sure you'll leave me upset eventually. At first, I thought you said elf waves, and I was like, "Oh, this
elf waves." Yeah, but not the kind of elves you're hoping.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's not. I'm sorry.
Well, I'll stick it through anyway, and I'm sure you'll get me.
It's sound waves.
I'm sure you'll have me in tears or in fear by the end.
Well, yeah, I think we both kind of got spoiled, recently, the last couple episodes with like not so upsetting the government's trying to get you sort of stuff. And I think I'm getting ready to go back on that soapbox a little bit. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, it's been a little while since I've had a good declassified episode, and yeah, I think we're gonna get into some stuff here that really we should all know about. This, I scared myself doing this research.
Are we going full Alex Jones on this? What are these elf waves doing? Are you going to explain it to me?
Yes.
All right.
Yes. In 1960, biologist Allan Fray, who was then 25 years old, was working at General Electric's Advanced Electronics Center at Cornell University when he was contacted by a technician whose job was to measure the signals emitted by radar stations. Now, the technician claimed that he could hear radar. So he calls up Allan. He's like, "Hey, dude, I'm hearing the radar right now. Like, I'm hearing it happen, and I know we can't see them, and that doesn't make sense, but I think you should come check this out."
He has some sort of superpower.
Maybe. Fray traveled to the facility where the man worked and stood at the edge of the radar beam. And he said, and quote, "And sure enough, I could hear it too. I could hear the radar going zip, zip, zip." Fray went on to establish that the effect was real. Microwave radiation from radar and other sources could somehow be heard by human beings. The hearing, however, didn't happen via normal sound waves perceived but through the ear. It apparently occurred somewhere in the brain itself, as microwaves interacted with the brain's cells, which generate tiny electrical fields. Fray proved also that many deaf people and animals could also hear these microwave radiation waves. Not sound, but I mean it is, but it's not. It's happening in their head.
It's not traditional sound. It's straight into your brain.
Yes, directly into the brain and vibrating like the cells in there, basically. So this phenomenon came to be known as the Fray effect, or simply microwave hearing. Have you ever heard of microwave hearing?
No, but I want to ask you, did you see anything about Apple's prototype headphones or when you were researching this?
No. Oh, no, I didn't. I know what you're talking about, though. They're working on something to where you just won't.
It'll go into your skull, which might be different.
We're gonna spread out a little bit here. I had a really hard time deciding which things about this topic I wanted to talk about. Like, there is so much out there.
Did we touch on this partially in my Blue Beam episode about the voice of God?
I think we might have, yes.
Okay,
you're gonna see that if it didn't, we can definitely tie this into Project Bluebeam now, for sure.
Oh, good.
So at this time, again in the early 60s, the U.S. military, which was interested greatly in expanding its use of radar around populated areas, had substantial funding available to investigate the effects of such radiation on human health. For the next 2 decades, Fray, funded by the Office of Naval Research and the U.S. Army, was the most active researcher on the bioeffects of microwave radiation in the country. Fray caused rats to become docile by exposing them to radiation at an average power level of only 50 microwatts per square centimeter, which is not much. He could alter specific behaviors of rats at 8 microwatts per square centimeter. He altered the heart rate of live frogs at 3 microwatts per square centimeter. At only zero point 0.6 microwatts per square centimeter, Dennis, he caused isolated frogs' hearts to stop beating by timing the microwave pulses at a precise point during the heart's rhythm. 0.6 microwatts per square centimeter is about 10,000 times less than the amount of radiation an active cell phone would expose a man's heart to if he carried it in his shirt pocket.
Which I do sometimes.
You might want to stop doing that.
So, this why are we acting like Havana syndrome is some kind of big mystery then? Obviously, this has been possible for decades.
Oh, more than possible.
If you could stop a frog's heart, you could probably mess up someone's brain.
It seems that way. Again, this is in the 60s into the 80s.
Right. This is decades and decades ago.
And actually, he might be the guy that I don't remember. I think I talk about it later on. I think he's already passed away, and I think it's pretty recent because somebody else has carried on his research since then. Maybe he's just retired.
Picking up the mantle of radio wave mind
blowing
control.
up rats basically with microwave radiation. So in a study published 15 years later in 1975 in the Annals of the New York Academy of Sciences, Fray reported that microwaves could induce leakage in the barrier between the circulatory system and the brain. Breaching the blood-brain barrier is a serious matter. It means that bacteria, viruses, and toxins from the blood can in fact enter the brain. It means the brain's environment, which needs to be extremely stable for nerve cells to function properly, can be perturbed in other dangerous ways. Fray's method was rather simple. He injected a fluorescent dye into the circulatory system of white rats, then swept the microwave frequencies across their bodies. In a matter of minutes, the dye had leached into the confines of the rats' brains. 1975. 1975, this is happening. 1975.
Almost 50 years ago.
Yep. But I'm sure this hasn't gone any farther. We stopped right here, obviously.
And no other country has figured this out.
No, of course not. Nobody else is. I mean, I had to go through extreme means to get a hold of this information.
Yes, I know how you're often throwing people in the back of vans to get.
Yeah, I have to. That's the only way you get to talk about this sort of things. So also in 1975, man, the 70s were just a weird time for just so many different things. Karen Silkwood's getting killed. This is all happening right at that time.
Man, I'm telling you, 1960 through about 1988 would be the best time to have a career in like military intelligence
any kind of espionage, anything high-ranking intelligence, really. Because you could just anything you could dream up. Like, you could eat some acid and then come up with a cool idea, and they'll throw a few $1 million at to see if it works.
You could just feed other people acid.
Oh, yeah, they did that. We're going to get into that at some point. Like, we keep on just kind of skirting around MK Ultra stuff just because it's too much to cover all at once. Like, it's got so many little tendrils to it that, So, again, 1975, an article by neuropsychologist Don Justinson, discussing radiation effects on human perception, referred to an experiment by Joseph C. Sharp and Mark Grove at the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research, during which Sharp and Grove reportedly were able to recognize 9 out of 10 words transmitted to them by voice-modulated microwaves. 1975, Dennis. They're putting words in people's heads.
Wow.
It's going to get worse.
Okay.
This is going to get worse. We're setting the table. And again, this is so hard for me to decide which things I wanted to talk about with this. So I'm probably at some point, there's going to be stuff in this episode I think I'm going to want to rip apart farther, to be honest with you. So since the radiation levels approached at the time then, the current limit, which was 10 microwatts per centimeter squared, which was considered the safe exposure limit, critics have observed that under such conditions, brain damage from thermal effect of high power microwave radiation would occur. and there was no conclusive evidence for MAE at lower energy densities.
Okay. And lower is good, though, because that's what you need to go farther distance.
Yes.
So cell phone towers are probably safe. Maybe. Maybe
depending
not.
on how close you're standing to them and how frequently, I think is probably the bigger. And we're not getting ready to get into some like 5G tower stuff. Like,
oh no, I was hoping we get into 5G. I went down a personal rabbit hole about that. We might eventually do it as like if I ever do an episode again where we do like 2 or 3 topics, that might be one of them. Because I don't think there's nothing to that.
Well, the more after this episode, I feel like you're gonna feel probably stronger about that feeling that you're having. So I want to jump forward now to June, July of 1989, and an issue of the West German scientist publication Ram and Zeit, which carried an article by Dr. W. Volkroth titled, "Can Human Beings Be Manipulated by Elf Waves?" Which again are these low frequency waves that we're talking about here. The article stated, quote, "The technical principles of receivers for electromagnetic waves is fully analogous with biological information and communication systems. If several thousand of the hundreds of billions of nerve cells in our brain resonate with man-made centimeter waves, the carrier frequency has to be suppressed when the signal is passed on to the synapses. To overcome cell membranes, living organisms use electrochemical processes involving sodium and potassium ions. This suppresses the carrier frequency in the high frequency range, just as the demodulation circuit does in a man-made receiver." So the way our brain picks up these waves is very similar to the way like just a regular radio is picking up radio signal and diffusing it, basically.
Biology is nuts.
Yeah, it really is. How we're not just walking around with our heads exploding all the time at this point is really kind of getting concerning. I don't know why that's not happening more often.
Well, give the government a 6G and we'll all have our heads exploding real soon.
Or just our brains melting, or a bunch of tumors. Oh boy, I could have done a whole episode just on the possible side effects and things that they could supposedly do with this. Like, I had so much information, and I decided it was just going to be too tedious, so we're going to brush over a lot of it. But there's not much that isn't possible with these things.
I'm more worried about the aphasia, the like just brain damage, than I would be about like big tumors. I'm worried we're going to have a society of people walking around just like confused, like not functioning right, or dementia. That's the more I read about this stuff, that's what really scares me, is not so much because people always talk about the tumors, and I mean, we have radiation from all kinds of sources all the time, but like what worries me is the frequency's ability to cause you harm. Like, we didn't evolve to be walking around in an ocean of this stuff.
Nope. Not yet, maybe. Maybe we do eventually, but we're not there now. So, okay, so after the carrier frequency is suppressed in the high frequency range, just as, like I said, the demodulation circuit does in a man-made receiver, what remains is the signal impressed on the carrier frequency, i.e. in the low frequency ELF range. This is also the frequency range at which our own nervous system normally works. Using these frequencies, the nerve fibers convey pain sensations, the feeling of hunger, tiredness, nausea, and signals on the sense of balance to the point in the brain which invoke these stages in an awake consciousness. So you're balanced, your gut not hurting, whether you're tired or not, whether you feel hungry. Oh, if headaches. You just feel pain. Yeah, headaches.
We are so fragile.
We really are. So if interference signals are superimposed onto the natural signals generated by the body as a carrier, the brain could be presented with stimulated states that we consciously perceive, but which do not appear as reality.
Yeah, this is kind of making me wonder about our sound wave escaping time and reality as well.
We're going to talk about binaural. I don't know if I brought it into this. I will at some point. Binaural beats are brought up as part of this, as a possible, like, things that do this.
Did we damage our own brains that week?
No, I don't think that it's not damaging what we were doing, but it's creating that similar effect where it connects the right and left brain.
Okay.
Or it can do that. It does it in a different way, though. We're not getting microwave. We're getting sound waves. It's still coming in through our ears.
Right.
Still so no, it's not that. Like, if we were putting something, I guess maybe if you put something on your forehead that had like if you were able to put subwoofers up against your head to such a high degree that maybe it could do it that way. But even then, it's still sound waves. So no, I don't think we're damaging ourselves doing that.
Okay.
Although I have been running into a lot of walls lately. I don't know if that's related to all the binaural beats I've been listening to. Could be just a coincidence. So, like I said, okay, so a stage of disturbed sense of balance, which seems to us to be real, is enough to stop people from being able to run or make them feel dizzy enough even when they are lying down. So, in a psychotronic war, using microwaves modulated using elf waves, it would no longer be necessary to kill whole armies by inducing cardiac or respiratory irregularities with these signals. So we could do that. We don't even got to do that. We don't even got to kill them. The enemy can simply be incapacitated by disturbing their states of balance or confusing the ability to think logically.
Is there evidence we've used this?
There's a big picture of one of these things right here.
I was going to ask about this. Rather imposing.
That is one of those things, which will you can't really see too much of the background. It looks like it might be in a desert, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we probably are, in fact, using this sometimes, or at least playing with it.
This might be better for like more traditional warfare, though, because like if you're out in the mountains trying to find Al Qaeda or whatever, I mean, you can't just or you could just unleash this on a city, but then you'd be hitting all kinds of civilians, and
it can go through walls and things.
Right.
So
I feel like this would be best if you just were like lining up on a battlefield and you could just radio wave them. But...
True, it would be best, but it's not the only way it could be used.
Right.
Also, this is a big one. They make them in handheld too.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Which we're going to get to that a little bit. But yeah, I think that's the part that's really going to stick to the Havana syndrome research that we've already done.
If I'm ever on a road trip or out driving around, I see anything that looks like that, I'm just leaving. I'm leaving civilization. I'm just heading south until I get to Mexico.
I don't know if there's going to be any place to run. So the manipulation of human beings by means of elf waves is relatively easy to perform. Again, this is a German scientific magazine in the late 80s talking about this. In the late 80s, which is probably, I would assume, what the era of this weapon that we're looking at. Like I said, they're much smaller now.
I was 3 years old.
And they were blasting people with microwaves, confusing them when we were 3 years old.
Oh, boy.
But this hasn't gone any farther, I'm sure. We obviously stopped here and decided this is not good, and we stopped that.
As always.
Yeah, because we do the right thing. Always. So government authorities and military would have to overcome no insurmountable difficulties to modulate carrier frequencies with ELF signals in existing centimeter radio relay links. So we can do this with regular radios too. We don't even need special speakers.
In 89.
And an army of occupation, it goes on to say, and an army of occupation could then manipulate a nation's ability to make decisions in confusing political situations or disable undesirable activities. ELF modulated microwave transmitters employed in this way could also serve to obviate the use of force, non-lethal weapons.
This is being used on us.
Yes.
This is a publicly available academic article from 32 years ago. This is obviously, I mean, I don't think we came down on Havana syndrome being aliens, but now this is Russia or China.
Well, we've used sound cannons in riot situations already. We already know they do that.
Yeah, but this is more advanced than
This is
that.
more advanced than that, but I don't know that that isn't part of what they're doing with that.
I mean, then all these articles we did on Havana Center where they're like, well, nobody has this technology. That's
That's
just a
not true.
lie.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
just a flat out lie.
Yep. I started all this research. I just wanted to learn about memory alteration and mind control a little bit, and then all this happened. And I've been pretty upset ever since.
I've been pretty dizzy ever since.
Oh, that makes sense. You know what? The whole time I was researching, like, this is gonna be the thing that gets us. This is gonna be the thing that gets us. My brain's just gonna get melted. They're gonna think I'm schizophrenic all of a sudden.
The next guy I see outside my office building with an umbrella, I'm gonna be like putting on my tinfoil hat. I'm gonna
Yeah,
get
you
fired.
should. So once any kind of desire, so back to the article, once any kind of desire to defend our capacity to resist has been dispelled, political activities by negotiation are sufficient to incorporate into one's power a nation subjugated in this way. 1989, this is where we were at, or 1988. And again, I know this all sounds crazy, but the US intelligence and military agencies have actually been patenting this type of technology since the 60s when they started working on it. And I'm
Oh,
gonna
good.
and this is the part where I'm like, each one of these things could arguably be its own episode, or at least grouped into clusters. And I might go back and do them and break them apart. I just want to give you some titles and maybe the year that the patent was issued, and we'll just run through these real quick.
All
So
right.
the first one, it was filed in 1956, Dennis. 1956. It's called the hypnotic inducer, or the mind control machine. A patent was issued for it in 1961. 50 years ago.
Wow.
50 years ago. The next one, issued in 1962, also filed in the 50s, apparatus for producing visual stimulation, subconscious transmission via movie film. 1962, that one was patented as that's a thing. Next one, apparatus for producing visual and auditory stimulation, subconscious transmission via TV. That was issued in 1966, but it had also been filed in 1958.
Oh my God. This might be one. This might be easily the most upsetting thing you've ever.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've been very upset about it for a couple days now. Very upset about it. Our next patent, Dennis, filed in 1962, issued in 1968. The nervous system excitation device. Let's excite that nervous system, Dennis. Let's hype it up a little bit. 1968. By 1971, a patent had been issued for method and apparatus for improving neural performance in human subjects by electrotherapy. That one sounds helpful. Probably
That
not.
one sounds.
1971 was when hearing systems, which are RF microwave transmissions, that's when that finally came around. That's when we actually know about a little bit. Next, in 1973, a patent was issued for a method of an apparatus for producing swept frequency modulated audio signal patterns for inducing sleep. Brain frequency broadcast is also what this was called. 1975, method of inducing and maintaining stages of sleep in the human being. FFR is what it was known as, frequency following responsive microwave.
Go to sleep, little child.
Go to sleep and stay asleep. I'll decide how long you're going to sleep for. 1976, apparatus and method for remotely monitoring and altering brain waves.
Monitoring.
Yep. Oh, and altering them.
Yeah, monitoring is a bigger step, I would say, remotely. Anyone can shoot a microwave from a little
You're right.
umbrella gun, but like reading someone's mind.
Yep. 1976, that patent was issued. In 1983, a patent was issued for the auditory subliminal message system and method, also known as subliminal brainwash via music or other sound, which that might be the binaural beats that we've been doing.
That sounds more like the whole play a record backwards thing, or like,
kind of.
Or anything you listen to.
Yeah, that's kind of what I took away from it. Anything you listen to could probably have this done to it.
This must be why NPR makes me sleepy.
Oh, I laugh because it hurts. 1988, a patent was issued for method of changing a person's behavior. That's what the patent was called, or subconscious brainwash via video.
The video stuff is freaking me out because what does that have to do with microwaves? What are they doing? It sounds like another technology, the TV and video thing. It sounds like another way they're manipulating us. It's different because I can understand my brain's kind of like has these little biological transistors or whatever, and you're like pumping in electricity into it via microwaves or signals. But what are they doing with just video or just TV is what I wonder.
I don't know. Again, things that may spin off out of this episode. I didn't. Man, it was so hard picking what things I wanted to like. It just became like we got to kind of do like an overview, set the table a little bit. But I'm very upset about all this, and I feel like I'm going to be talking about it for a little while.
Yeah, we're gonna keep coming back to it.
Yeah, and again, it overlaps with so many other things we've already researched that we didn't even know. Like, it's upsetting. In 1988, there was a patent issued for auditory subliminal programming system, also known as silent brainwash via music or other sound. So you don't even know what's happening.
All right.
And apparently it doesn't, I don't know how that works. Like it's silent. That's one we may have to come back to. 1989, apparatus for reducing frequency reduction in brainwave, FFR, brain frequency transmissions.
Now, I want to note for the listeners, because I don't know if you're going to show this on YouTube or if it's just going to be in the show links or if it's not. All of these are, it looks like these are downloaded from the patent website, and you actually have the patent numbers right next to them. Yeah.
It'll be in the source info. I can pick it out. Actually, I mean, I could throw this up as we're reading through it. It could be up on the screen right now, but it'll be in the source material, and I can try and remember to mark it as special so that you know which thing to look at if you want to see all this. But yeah, there are links. I did click on a few of them. They do go to the patent office. Like you can look all this stuff up. They're real. It's upsetting, but they're real. This one doesn't sound as scary. 1989 hearing device, microwave hearing. I don't even know what that means. In 1989, oh, go ahead.
That to me sounds more like the whole. Actually, one of the more scarier parts that you might be receiving information from people's brains without them knowing.
Yep. Well, I mean, they had the one. What was it? 10 years ago, that was able to read their brain waves. And not 10 years ago, I'm saying 10 years in this list, like back in the 70s, there was a patent for it.
Right.
Also in 89, there was the hearing system, which is a microwave hearing via open air broadcast. Sounds extremely
like
scary.
At a concert or a rave.
Yeah.
This is when electronic music got popular.
Dude, you know what? You're not wrong.
Shove a bunch of people in a metal building, play a pre-recorded track, and that's been the most popular bar experience since around the
man, that might be what's happening. Yeah, again, that could probably be its own episode, just going down that path.
Raves are mind control. And you put them on drugs a lot of the time first, which probably makes you more...
we know what the CIA likes, put people on drugs.
And they were running crack at this time, so surely they were running some ecstasy.
Well, that's what I mean. And Molly, which is the base of ecstasy, MDMA, is a chemically lab engineered. We could probably do an episode, because I'm going to blank on the details, but it was, yeah. There's probably a link to all this, too, along with the LSD boom. There's probably some link to something like that with MDMA.
The Chemical Brothers are actually a created thing between the CIA and MI6. And every time you're in a club and you hear the Chemical Brothers, it's telling you things. It's probably just like vote for Dole, but you know, it might be telling you other things as well.
Oh man. So we're into the 90s now. 1992. Silent subliminal presentation system, aka silent sound microwave.
So this is for like when you want to mind control someone, but all you have is like a boring PowerPoint.
I guess.
This is for when
1994, method of an apparatus for inducing desired states of consciousness. FFR / EEG waveforms by broadcast. 1998, method and system for warning birds of hazards. Microwave hearing. 1998. Which I'm assuming that's some sort of signal that, like, when they're like moving into something like power lines, I don't know.
Yeah, that actually
Gotta
almost
be.
that sounds helpful if it works.
It sounds helpful.
And particularly like it would kill a lot of birds if it doesn't work.
Probably. 1999, acoustic heterodyne device and method, ultrasound ventriloquist effect. I can make it sound like you're talking.
Oh.
So inanimate objects now, even. Just anything. I can make a voice sound like it's coming from anywhere.
Oh man! So not only do you hear it, it sounds like it's coming from like the neighbor's dog or you when I have my back turned. Or oh my gosh!
Yes, that's exactly what that means. Again, this is 22 years ago. That one came out. 21 years ago, in 2000, communication system and method including brainwave analysis and or use of brain activity, also known as remote viewing.
That's the advancement. I see 3 or 4 different strains going on here, and they keep getting more extreme.
Yep. Yes, they are. Also in 2000, apparatus and method of broadcasting audible sound using ultrasonic sound as a carrier. Ultrasound. 2002, method and device for implementing the radio frequency hearing effect, microwave hearing. And finally, in 2003, and this is where I'm going to stop. They go past this, but again, I'm trying to compartmentalize this information and do one episode, and then we're going to get into more recent stuff at a later point because some of it was so recent it was upsetting. I like, especially with stuff like this, where we can see stuff play out over time and we can grab more information to kind of validate what's being said. So we should note that some, if not all of these patents are highly advanced and are now handheld, portable, land, sea, and aerial drone and space-based and continue to advance in research, testing, and development programs with the military-industrial complex, thus making ongoing human experimentation a must. Now here's where things get really crazy, Dennis. And I really kind of lean into some of the fringe beliefs that are attached to some of this to see what we think about the validity of some of the supposed uses of this technology. As I was researching, there became some very common ideas on what this tech could be used for. And now this may be just people regurgitating others' ideas, but there were quite a few people holding doctorates and work in related fields and that all had things to say about this. And given some of the things we've discussed on the show already, these ideas may not actually seem all that crazy, just based on the setup here.
My guess is we're basically going to say, oh boy, there it is.
Yep. And this is one of the weirder ones, but I wanted to talk about it, and we could dig down into this. It was hard choosing just on this topic where I wanted to go with this. So consider the common public characterizations of perpetrators of several mass shootings in the U.S. Let's go back to, say, James Holmes, the Aurora, Colorado movie shooter, Adam Lanza, the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooter. But what I really want to focus on right now, I think, is Aaron Alexis, the shooter at the Naval Sea Systems Command inside the Washington Navy Yard in Southeast Washington, D.C. Even though most skeptical among us would have to agree that there is not only something eerily similar about the characterizations made public of each of these alleged perpetrators, but there is something not quite right with the changes made to the official narratives, sometimes in real time, as well as after the fact.
He was 2007. I think I was in DC when that happened.
No, Aaron Alexis was 2013.
Oh, okay.
2007.
I must be thinking of something else.
Yeah, probably one of the other.
2007 or 2008 was Virginia. Sorry.
Yeah.
Virginia Tech.
So perhaps the circumstances of Aaron Alexis are the most blatant, and that's kind of why I want to focus on this guy, because of some of the things you'll see. The man who brought wholesale death to a quiet morning at a secure military location has been characterized as mentally ill, with the media noting that he was plagued by voices in his head. Now, more than a month. Now, again, we just talked about how there's technology where you could put a voice in somebody's head. So, more than a month before the shooting, on August 7th, 2013, Alexis reported to police that he was being stalked by unidentified individuals who followed him to 3 different motels. And these individuals, he said, were using some sort of, quote, microwave machine to send voices into his body and keeping him awake all night long. It is interesting and potentially relevant that Alexis refused to tell police what exactly the voices were instructing him to do. At this point, I kind of suspect the majority of the sane among us would simply write Alexis off as a mentally ill and unworthy, that he's mentally ill and unworthy of any further intellectual discussion. But there could be something more to this story based on all this microwave technology that we see coming. And again, a week before he goes into this base and starts shooting it up, he's trying to get the police to help him with people that are following him around. So either he's lost it out of nowhere, because he has military, he's a government subcontractor, he works there.
Which means he had to go through a lot of background checks.
Yes. They typically don't give security clearance to people that have any kind of history of mental illness. And it's a pretty stringent background check. And we're going to get into a little bit of that and maybe why he got through. So while the media consistently reported that Alexis had a long history of mental illness, those who knew Alexis long before and up to the shooting defended his mental stability. Although he had several previous altercations with the law, it is rather curious that Alexis was not criminally charged in at least 2 of the more severe of those occasions. A review of his criminal record's history might suggest that something else was going on, especially considering his self-described, quote, blackouts during some of those events.
He was a guinea pig.
At this point, the blackout, we're going to get here. So, 34-year-old Aaron Alexis was a former full-time Navy reservist who had obtained a concealed carry permit in Texas and was arrested 3 years before the shooting for illegally discharging a weapon. So in 2010. But he was also an aviation electrician's mate, 3rd class in the U.S. Navy Reserve, who received an honorable discharge in 2011. That would be after the 2010 incident. Nobody in the military, he didn't get in trouble. But it's just normally when people in the military do stuff like that, they get court-martialed, they're dishonorably discharged, things happen to them. He was honorably discharged, though, which, however, came despite a checkered 4-year career, a period marked by repeated run-ins with his military superiors and the law, according to documents and Navy officials. This is according to the Washington Post. Media reports also paint a picture of a man potentially struggling with mental illness. Now, NPR obtained a police report, which is where I saw a lot of this, offered a narrative of disturbing incidents in which Alexis complained of, quote, hearing voices. Still, Alexis was able to get that honorable discharge and also received the Global War on Terrorism Service Medal and the National Defense Service Medal, awards of minor distinction. This was added by the Washington Post. Friends report that the Fort Worth Star-Telegram say he, quote, regularly meditated at a local Buddhist temple, was unfailingly courteous and never showed signs of the violence that is now his legacy. He, quote, when he lived at my house, I never saw him get angry about anything, said a former landlord, Somsak Shrizan. My feeling is, if he was angry about anything, he didn't show that to me. Of course, I don't know who has in-depth conversations with their landlord, about how they're feeling. Anyway. But also, But he was also, as the Seattle Times reported, arrested in 2004 for, quote, shooting out the tires of a construction worker's car in what Alexis later described as an anger-fueled blackout. 2004.
Okay.
9 years before.
That leads me back towards severe mental illness.
Does it? Or does it seem like maybe somebody might be messing with him?
I mean, it could be either at this point, but 2004, so he would have been in his early 20s, which is usually when schizophrenia starts.
That's true. That is true.
I like that he went to that Buddhist temple, though. That'd be ample time to brainwave you while you're sitting still.
But the thing is, okay, so with, you're right, it does present itself that early, but he's not, I can see the argument there. I can see the argument there, how, yeah, maybe that's what's being presented there. And you're right, maybe it is mental illness. It could be.
But it's hard. That's the problem with this technology, is it mimics mental illness. So it's like, it makes you question.
There was stuff I was reading that like basically came straight out and said like, oh, they can like turn diseases on and off with this essentially. Like they could give you cancer, they can make your cells go crazy, they can give you phantom pain at any part of your body, they can make you hallucinate, they can make you hear things. At some point, we're going to talk about the God helmet, which I don't know if you heard of that.
I've heard of the God helmet. Yeah,
it almost made its way in here, but it was going to be too much, and I didn't. It's such a fascinating thing. It's scary, but it's fascinating. And I'm probably going to do a whole episode on it, or kind of do that little chunk as its own thing of simulating what may be some sort of a God particle, God cell to our brain.
Yes.
But okay. So he did that in 2004. Then 4 years later, in DeKalb County, Georgia, Alexis spent 2 nights in jail after being cited for disorderly conduct following a disturbance at a nightclub. As the citation, which is available online, shows, the arresting officer wrote that even though he had told Alexis several times to stop swearing, the F-bombs and other profanity continued. Another friend in Fort Worth, however, has fond memories of Alexis, quote, sitting at one of the tables at Happy Bowl, a restaurant, trying to teach himself Thai. Alexis's family, CNN noted, was in disbelief about it. They said, quote, what I do know is he wasn't that type of person. And this is Anthony Little, who identified himself as Alexis's brother-in-law. And he told reporters outside his Brooklyn, New York home, quote, I didn't really hear anything that would make me feel, as a newcomer to that family, that somebody should be watching him. You know, they didn't see it coming, said Little, who is, like I said, was married to Alexis's sister, Naomi. Their hearts are going out more to the victims and the people that got hurt because, you know, there's more lives lost, and we don't need that right now. We really don't. Now, according to a police report obtained by NPR, Alexis called Newport, Rhode Island police on August 7th, 2013, from his hotel room, going back to what we started with, saying that 3 men had been sent to harass him. Alexis believes that the individual that he got into an argument with has sent 3 people to follow him and keep him awake by talking to him and sending vibrations into his body. The men, Alexis told police, were sent by an unknown party whom Alexis allegedly had a verbal altercation with while getting onto his flight from Virginia to Rhode Island. According to the report, Alexis told the officer that he had moved from one hotel to a Navy base and then to a third hotel because the voices remained following him. Alexis told police that the individuals were using some sort of microwave machine to send vibrations through the ceiling, penetrating his body so he cannot fall asleep. He also told police that he did not have a history of mental illness and had never felt this way before. Police advised that if he saw the people in question, he should call police again. And according to the police report, Sergeant Frank C. Rosa Jr. reported the contact with Alexis to the Navy base. He told the base that Alexis was hearing voices.
Man, there's that's part of the thing that's so scary about this. There's no way to, knowing that technology exists. Now, I don't have a motive why the government would choose Alexis and drive him
he was
nuts.
in the military.
Yeah,
they had easy access to him early on.
Right.
to where they
But
can monitor his health in a lot of different ways because he'd be getting regular checkups through the VA and all that.
there's just no way, you know, if I heard this story 9 years ago, I'm sure we all did. It's easy to say, well, that's schizophrenia. But
Yep.
now that we know that it's possible that it was actual microwaves, and also he worked in what sounds like he might have known this might exist, possibly,
Yeah.
based on being in the Navy in that capacity. So, because that'd be my main question is, right now you and I know this exists because of all this research you did, but like, would he know it really exists at that time? And how would you know it's microwaves as opposed to something else is happening? Then again, those people with Havana syndrome, they know something's wrong. They know it's not
Yeah.
mental. They're saying I'm being attacked. Um, oh man,
And being more higher ranking people, they obviously were able to they were more believed and
they were taken
justified.
seriously.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Whereas Alexis is not high ranking. I mean, like I said, based on so many things we've seen them do in the past to people in the military, like he could just been part of an experiment.
He could just be the unlucky dude they picked.
Yep. Or they picked his squad, or who knows? Who
No,
knows?
no, we don't know what these voices were telling him, right?
No, that was
Say.
again. He wouldn't tell police what they were saying.
So it could have been internal voices saying kill people. It could have been his own voice saying kill people. It could have been microwave machine saying kill people. It could have been a microwave machine saying something completely unrelated, and it made him so mad that he went and shot up a Navy base because he was sick of not
And he,
sleeping,
yeah, and he
or
thinks
his,
that's where it's coming
or
from.
or brain aphasia, brain damage. It can cause violence.
Or remember back to what we were talking about in that German '80s article where they're talking about you could make it so people don't think logically.
That's what I'm saying. It can cause you to be confused and violent, and that's a natural result of being confused.
And we can already kind of see from a little bit. We're going to get into some more of it, I think. I'm pretty sure I saved all his arrest stuff, but like he's got some anger issues. He definitely has some anger issues that present themselves at several different points in about a 10-year period leading up to him doing this.
That might also be the perfect guy to target, though, because then you can
Yes.
say, well, of course he did that because he has a record.
Yep.
Wow.
But he also gets off of a lot of things too. Several of these things, like I said earlier, like he probably should have gone to jail for, and he didn't really. Or if he did, it was not for very long. Things just seem to kind of disappear sometimes. Where it gets okay, so despite his reported checkered history and claims of public questions regarding his mental stability, Alexis was granted security clearance as a government subcontractor working for a company called The Experts, which was a subsidiary of HP Enterprise Services owned by Hewlett Packard. Notably, congressional oversight is now asserting that there were faults in the company performing the background checks for the government workers and subcontractors. Nonetheless, it is reasonable, although certainly unpopular, to ask whether incompetence alone is responsible for Alexis being granted the security clearance that he was.
Right.
It is unpopular, if not unacceptable, in normal social circles to discuss other possibilities or facilitating factors associated with not only the homicidal actions of Aaron Alexis, but others, as I mentioned, like James Holmes, Adam Lanza, and others. On September 20th, 2013, so that same year that it happened, an article in Wired magazine by Arthur Allan McDuffie titled "Conspiracy Theories Abound After Navy Yard Shooting." Here's a little excerpt from that. The microwave weaponry theory would be just as absurd as some of the other conspiracies if the Pentagon hadn't been researching the possibility of using similar voice projection technology in the past as a non-lethal weapon. According to one report on the project, such a weapon would create a condition similar to schizophrenia. Application of the microwave hearing technology could facilitate a private message transmission. It may be useful to provide a disruptive condition to a person not aware of the technology. Not only might it be disruptive to the sense of hearing, it could be physiologically devastating if one suddenly heard voices within one's head.
Right, exactly. Oh, I didn't want to say right now too, because one of the major things that get people who question this stuff in trouble is when you get into this topic of murderers and mass shooters and stuff. And I want to say none of this would necessarily take away his moral culpability,
No.
and it doesn't make his victims any less victims. But it's interesting that we know, for instance, we've had here in Kansas City, I forget his name, but we had a Kansas City Chiefs player who killed himself and a fiance
Hmm.
in the parking lot of Arrowhead Stadium.
Yep.
And it was universally acknowledged brain damage from football could cause this type of violent act from someone who had no history of it in his 20s, and all of a sudden he's in his 30s and he's a murderer, right? It doesn't take away his culpability. It doesn't take away the tragedy.
No.
And we know who was the wrestler who killed his family and himself.
Oh, I'm a blank on that. I'm not a huge wrestling fan.
Okay, there was a very famous. I'm not even gonna attempt to somehow be like Stone Cold Steve Austin. No, not him. Um,
He's just crushing beer cans on his head, I think.
yeah, he's doing it. But there was a very famous WWF athlete who was found. He had hung himself on his weight set at home and killed members of his family a few years ago. And it was universally acknowledged when they did brain scans and stuff. Well, this came from the trauma of his fighting days and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So we know that like brain trauma can make people violent. I want to know if anyone ever did an autopsy on this guy to say like, did he have? Well, we'll never see it. We'll never see it. So
No.
you can say it about athletes, but when you say it about soldiers who often have PTSD, traumatic experiences, damage, brain damage. They might be microwaved in some kind of experiment. It's not saying that this is solely a conspiracy. It's just saying that's a question that might be asked about what causes something like this. And what was he exposed to and why is a valid question, especially now that we admit in the media that we have diplomats and people that are experiencing similar symptoms.
Yes.
So
Yes, no, and if it gave any impression that I was taking anything away from the victims, that's definitely not my intention at all. Like, if anything, it's upsetting because the people that really did this haven't been brought to justice.
yeah,
That's
no,
what's upsetting about it.
you did not give me that impression. I just think, and the current landscape,
No, and I agree. That's
out
good to
of
clarify.
abundance of caution, yeah, is that this could be, yeah, that's just insanely interesting. And as you said, this is the hearing voices thing is common. It's been common for a while
Yep.
with people, and also the whole I've been part of a CIA program or whatever, which we know a lot of the people who were talking about MK Ultra were telling the truth later.
Well, I mean, we've covered the remote viewers that used to work for the CIA that now teach people how to remote view, and that seems valid.
Right.
So to think that this thing that they spent even longer than the remote viewing on has no validity is just crazy.
And go back to the Tuskegee Airmen.
Yep.
Where we tested. I mean, you can't always test these things on the enemy because one, it could start a war. Two, you can't really observe the enemy. You can pump a microwave into their brain, but you don't know what their doctor's telling them the next day or what they're doing about it or what they're telling people in private conversations. Like when you do it on your own people, you can monitor them, especially service members. So, it raises the question, if this technology existed, has it been tested on service people? Just like we tested radiation, just like we tested viewing a nuclear weapon or being close to nuclear weapons. Just about everything we do, we test it on our own people. And I see no reason this wouldn't be any different. I'm not saying this particular guy is part of it, but again, even I said it earlier, you just said it just now, the symptoms between this and schizophrenia are so similar. It has to be a question. There's just no way of knowing.
Well, and not everybody who feels like they've been attacked, and we're going to touch on it a little bit. There's a lot of people that are still alive that claim they've dealt with this or have dealt with this in the past or have been experimented on in different ways, like targeted individuals is what they're referred to as. And we'll probably do an episode just on targeted individuals at some point, just because some of their stories are so fascinating. Just like, if you're making this up, man, you got a lot of commitment to this story that really isn't doing anything for you, like helpful in life.
Right.
It's making you look crazy. So, yeah. So if we look back in history, even as far back as the shooting death of Robert F. Kennedy, might we see something more to the story of these random shooting events? Is it possible that there are agendas at play and programs at work behind the scenes to which we are not privy? it is possible for rogue criminal elements inside the U.S. government to target the minds of certain individuals through electronic means to engage in certain behaviors, but does that include killing others? Before dismissing this possibility as some sort of conspiracy theory unworthy of further consideration, let's take a closer look and flashback to something we discussed very early in this show's life. Starting with the, again, 1975 findings of the Church Committee, which we talked about. Oh, God, that was in like the first 10 episodes. That was super early on.
Episode 3, I believe.
I think it was.
Yeah.
The disclosure from this investigation alone confirmed that our government was engaged in mind control experiments, spending billions of dollars and using unwitting subjects on which to test their latest drugs and electronic weaponry.
Right. We know that's true.
We know that. They admitted it. That's what the Church Committee did. It was a big thing. They had the dart gun. They were trying to do all sorts of crazy stuff. So this CIA activity was further verified in August 6, 2010, in a publication of Time magazine, which isn't exactly known to be a fringe publication. A list of top 10 weird government secrets was published with number 2 on that list being mind control. Within that article, it is stated that some historians argued that the goal of the program was to create a mind control system by which the CIA could program people to conduct assassinations. Before dismissing this as nonsense, consider the highly credentialed and well-researched Dr. John Hall, who authored the book, A New Breed. He's also a medical doctor as well. He authored the book, A New Breed, Satellite Terrorism in America. Just 5 days before the mass shooting event at the Washington Navy Yard by Alexis, Dr. Hall appeared as a guest on the Hagman and Hagman Report, speaking about his documentation of stalking and mind control. Interestingly, Aaron Alexis complained of being stalked, as I said, or harassed and having voices thrust into his head prior to his shooting spree. Listening to the broadcast could have been a template for what we observed not only at the Naval Yard, but at previous historical shooting events. In addition to the mind control aspect of this and other such events, it is reasonable to consider and even question that many inconsistencies in nearly all the official narratives of the incidents reports, again, from JFK's shooting to the Navy Yard, is it responsible for us to simply dismiss these documented inconsistencies in a light of what we know about the CIA's mind control experimentation?
Ooh, I mean, no. I mean, to answer the question, you can't. I guess you can't leave these things open forever. But I don't think it's. I would almost say it's not. It's not irresponsible to question it and to question what might have been the causes moving on in the future until they open up, because
No.
we know from the Church Committee, they say, oh yeah, we've been doing this for 30 years, but we've stopped now. And then in the 90s, they're like, oh yeah, well, we kept doing a lot of it, but we've stopped now. And then in 2010,
they said they stopped doing it in 1975, but they were still filing patents like 30 years later,
right,
related to similar things.
So basically, until there's some sort of sea change politically, almost, it seems like it's always responsible to question it. Now, does that mean we never accept that sometimes there's crazy people who shoot up places? No, I mean, I'm sure that happens. Yeah. But I mean, you definitely have to ask if the government is patenting these things, and we know they have a history of using them on people. It's an open question. I mean, surely you got to look into everything as deep as you can. So, yeah.
And that's where we ended this week, Dennis. The rest of my notes here, that's actually God helmet stuff that I was going to try and put on, and I decided I'm not going to do that. I thought I pulled all that back out.
I have so many thoughts on God helmet when we do it.
Oh, man. Yeah, maybe that'll be one of our... I don't know that that's going to be an uplet. That was actually, the more I read about that, that was kind of upsetting, too, in a weird way.
I think they try to upset you with it. I think God helmet's like a psyop. We better not get too into it.
Yeah, like I said, and yeah, if you already know, we could definitely do it. We're going to do an episode on that because, yeah.
I think just because something can mimic a feeling doesn't mean that you can't actually have the real feeling, is my take on that.
Oh, yeah, I would agree with that. But yeah, at some point, like, I will probably, it became too much. Like, I wanted to dig into, like, comparing each one of these shooting events to kind of look at it more in depth, but it was just it was going to be too much. Like, we'll probably come back to it and touch on other ones at different points.
Right. I still want to know, and this is more a shooting question, unless you read about it. I just want to know out of curiosity, based on what you read, the one that has always stuck out to me. Almost all of them, there's some explanation. The Las Vegas one, where that rich dude planned for weeks and went up in that hotel and had like everything to lose and nothing to gain and just like unloaded on a country concert.
Yeah.
That one has always stood out to me as the weirdest mass shooting.
And I wanted to talk about that because I don't want to say I there may be an episode that's the whole topic of the episode. Honestly, like it was. Again, I kind of wanted to set like a baseline of like this is where we're coming from, and this is what we know to be pretty much true up till 10 years ago or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. And honestly, I think I just upset myself enough going back just a little bit in time. The real current ones are always the most upsetting when it's like, oh, this is happening right now. This is
right.
Well,
yeah.
This is happening right now too, but it doesn't feel like it because I stopped at 2013.
I really want to. I'm going to do some independent research, which I might steal some of this stuff from you because
I got a bunch of places I can send you.
Oh yeah, well I'll look through the show notes and your links when you get it all put together. But the stuff about using visual stuff alone interests me. Some of those patents you were interested in.
Yeah. Again, most of those patents could each probably be their own episode or in little groups, which I may end up doing it that way because, yeah.
It's the Invention Secrecy Act. Although it makes you wonder why these weren't under that act.
Yeah. I hadn't really thought about that. Why didn't they try and hide these?
Well, yeah, that's the question. I need to look. I'm a lawyer and I have no idea, but I wondered this. When we did the Secrecy Act, we've had the Church Commission, we've done the Navy UFO patents, we've done this. We get into patents a lot.
Yep.
And I would like to know, and if somebody knows on YouTube or whatever, can leave a comment, or I could just educate myself. I'm not very educated in patent law, and I would like to know why some stuff's secret, other stuff isn't. Sometimes it seems like the stuff that declassified is nowhere near as earth-shattering as the stuff that was never secret.
Yeah.
Like the Navy UFO stuff seems like the most earth-shattering stuff, and it was like basically never secret. I would like to know, I understand that the Patent Secrecy Act is about taking, this might be the answer. The Patent Secrecy Act is about taking other people's inventions and saying, your invention as a private citizen is too important to national security that we have to take it. This might be stuff just flat out invented by the military.
Yep. I think that's it right there, because we've already got control of it. It doesn't matter whether you know about it or not. Like, you can't do anything with it. But you can't even try and figure out what it is.
It still begs the question, though, why is some stuff patented by the Navy secret and other stuff not? And why? How do they draw those lines? I know we did one episode that included like space warfare. It might have been Acoustic Kitty. I'm not sure, but I don't think so. Where it talked about it's almost information warfare. We let people know some patents instead of others because it will freak them out and make them think we have things.
Yeah.
That we may or may not. But I mean, I would love to be the guy who makes that decision about whether, because they're going to patent it, whether they do or not. And I'm not sure what a patent even means anymore because China just steals everything. But like, it makes you wonder. I don't know. I would love to know the minutia on that because I think it would tell a bigger story.
Yeah, like I said, I think I'm probably going to be stuck here for a little bit.
I think you got me though. This also makes me want to get back into the Fringe, or at least the other books by Catherine Turner, or Carlene Turner, because her ultimate thesis ends up being that the military is doing a lot of these abductions, and a lot of the abductions include like in your voice communication, hallucination stuff.
Well, that's what I mean. This would create telepathy.
This would give us the ability to fake telepathy.
Yep, it would.
Or, yeah, I mean, even at what point is it not even faking? Like, just because I'm using a radio and I can hear your thoughts
brain,
it basically is telepathy. Yeah, man, this is a great show. It's highly disturbing. It's definitely converted me to the fact that the Havana Syndrome is 100% real. It's not aliens. It's another government. I don't see why we would do that to our diplomats. It seems
this is probably another country doing this, or terrorists in some way.
Yeah, if we were patenting this in the 70s, then
Other people have figured it out.
yeah, it's just microwaves. So oh boy, well, I'm gonna go stick my head in the microwave and see
That
what
actually may
happens.
be the safest place for it, really.
Yeah, because the walls protect me from other
Yeah,
microwaves.
I was say the other microwaves won't be able to get in that way.
I'm gonna start wearing a microwave on my head. I'll just open the door out front when it's time for me to talk.
Mask 2.0. Well, thank you all so much for listening. Thank you for letting me scare you, Dennis. None of us
Thank
are going to
you.
sleep tonight. We're back next week because we're going to be wide awake researching stuff. So thank you. Love you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.